Welcome to the 12th District. I'm Kerry Kandata for NCW Life. We have quite a show for you today, a lot of information in the next 30 minutes, starting with one of our favorite topics, taxes. We're going to take a look at the tax rankings across the United States, the latest, and see how Washington ranks on various taxes against other states. We'll tell you who's the best and who's the worst in each of those categories. Then we're going to tighten that down a little bit and look at the tax situation and other problems for small business in Washington State facing a very difficult situation starting January 1 with new programs kicking in, new minimum wage and other issues. Small business in Washington State is going to be very difficult to navigate in the next year or two. We'll have a small business person here, Mike McKee from Mike's Meats, to talk about that subject and also to talk about his tremendous success with Initiative 1648, which is now the hottest grass fire initiative since $30 tabs 20 years ago. It has 300 locations plus for signing petitions and over 7,200 people out working this initiative right now, all because Mike McKee had an idea and got it going. Pretty impressive. At the end of the show, we're going to tell you the latest rankings, I should say polls, for the presidential approval rate as well as the new Democrat candidates that have entered the race. We'll take a look at how our own Governor Jay Inslee's doing, and then we'll talk about an article on who is the biggest threat to the Constitution of the United States. Is it really President Trump, or is it the Democrat Party itself? We'll explore that at the end of the show. Lots to get to today. We appreciate you taking a listen and being with us. We'll be right back with the 12th District. Welcome back to the 12th District. Well, as promised, we're going to talk a little bit about one of our favorite subjects today, taxes, tax rankings in general. A few months ago, maybe several months ago, we did a show on this. It was one of the most popular shows we've ever put on the air. We are 88 shows in right now, folks, and if you want to see some of the great topics we've covered, we're available on demand. You can go back and look at these shows, including the tax ranking show, at ncwlife.com. That's ncwlife.com. Go to Programs, 12th District, and then go down to On Demand, and you'll see a whole bunch of shows you can take a look at. They're all 30 minutes long. They're a quick look at some great subject matter. Some of our big shows were the recent one with Tim Eyman. Of course, the McCleary controversy is there, and these tax rankings from several months ago. We're going to update you right now. When it comes to Tax Freedom Day in Washington State, that happens to be on April 13th. That means that's the day that you're free and clear to earn money for yourself. You pay taxes, and again, this is on a state tax basis, not federal. So on a state tax basis, your break is at April 13th is tax-free day. That puts us 34th, and 34th being first being the best and 50th being the worst. We are 34th in the nation on taxes. The average for the United States is a little higher. It's April 19th is the tax-free day for the entire United States. The best is Alaska, which is April 4th, and the worst is New York State, which you have to work clear till May 12th to pay your taxes. That's darn near halfway through the year. That is substantial. I think April 13th is bad enough. All right, let's look at business taxes. We're going to take a look at business in general, small business, in just a few minutes. But business taxes, Washington is a real problem there. 44th out of 50 in taxes. That means 43 states do a better job or tax business less, and 6 actually tax businesses more. The best states to do business in are Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, and Alaska. Those are all in the top few. The worst states, of course, you could probably guess, are Washington, California, and New York again. New York always winning that top-notch spot of number 50 on most of these rankings. Let's look at taxes per capita outside of business. This is just general taxes paid, state taxes paid per person in the state of Washington. We are 12th in the nation in per capita taxes. This is $3,240 per person. So for a family of 4, that's about $12,000, and that does equate to about what the revenue line is in Washington State. We're about a little over 7 million, closer to 7.5 million people. So $3,200 a piece is what we're looking at. The worst is Vermont, home of Bernie Sanders. Wouldn't you expect that? $5,015 per capita, over $20,000 for a family of 4. And the best is, once again, Alaska. at $1,608 per person. New Hampshire, surprisingly, right behind Alaska at $1,859, and Texas being number 48, the third best, at $1,894. All right, gasoline tax, one we talk about a lot. Those little stickers on the pumps that I managed to get on there can tell you a lot. When you pull up to the pump, take a look. You're paying quite a bit. We're third in the nation in gas tax at 49 cents per gallon. We did dodge a bullet in this session, not seeing that go even higher. However, there is a wholesale gas tax we'll talk about later on that will actually bump that 49 cents a little bit, but it's on the back side where you don't see it. Now, here's the real catch. The U.S. average for gas tax per gallon, the U.S. average is 18 cents. 18 cents. We're at 49 cents. The worst is Pennsylvania, 59 cents. That's number one. And Alaska, of course, with the oil reserves, is the cheapest at 9. Again, the U.S. average is only 18 cents. We're at 49 cents per gallon. All right, spirits tax. Well, here's the place where we really shine. We are by far the number one place for liquor taxes. If you drink liquor, you probably know that. You can go to just about any state in the union and pay a lot less for your liquor. The spirit tax here in Washington, number one in the nation, is $32.52 per gallon. That's right, we charge $32.52 per gallon. Now, let's put that in perspective. With a national average of $13.50, we're darn near 3 times as much. The average is $13.50. But even Oregon, who's number 2, Oregon is number 2 on the list, is only $21.98, 22 bucks a gallon. We're at 32 bucks a gallon. So the next closest state right next door, which is number 2 on the list, is $22, $10 less per gallon. That's just absolutely amazing. The lowest is Missouri with $2 per gallon, Colorado at $2.28, and Texas at $2.40. Those are the 3 states with the lowest liquor tax. Now, this is not wine and beer. I might mention that wine and beer, we actually rank right in the middle, 25th on wine taxes, 25th on beer taxes, so right in the middle of the 50 states on those. However, the cigarette tax is $3.03 per pack, which is 8th in the nation. Once again, our sin tax is being extremely high. And for those that are on the side of cannabis, we are one of 8 states now selling cannabis, and we are the highest. We are the number 1 ranked for taxes at 37 cents. Washington in sin taxes is extremely high. That's where they make a lot of money on the backside. You don't see it when we get our tax rate rankings nationally. Those sin taxes usually aren't included. It's usually just the mainline taxes, B&O, state sales tax, and property tax. So these are cleverly hidden on the backside with the liquor tax leading the way. Here's one you probably don't know about. That is the 3rd highest in the nation is a cell phone tax. Now, if you look at your cell phone bill carefully, you'll see some additional taxes on it. But did you know it's a 20% tax on your cell phone bill? It's actually 19.41%. That's the 3rd highest in the nation. The U.S. average for cell phone taxes is only 6.64%. Again, we're 3 times the national average, which we tend to be on a lot of these specific taxes. And the lowest, believe it or not, again, is in Oregon, right next door at 2.1%, the lowest cell tax in the business. Well, that's just a quick update and a quick rundown on some of the highlights. To look at a more broader look at these tax rankings, go back to our show on tax rankings. You'll see it in the on-demand section at ncwlife.com. Well, when we talk about taxes, we talk about regulations, we talk about other fees. Washington State leads the way in a lot of categories for sure, but no more than they do in small business. It's an extremely tough state to do small business in. First of all, small business here is up against a B&O tax. Only a few states have a gross B&O tax. We're one of them, which taxes the gross. If a business starts up and even loses money for the first few years, especially if it's a high volume business, they're paying exceptional taxes. For car dealers, for instance, that have a very high volume in terms of dollars but a very low margin, they pay exceptional taxes. As an example, a car dealer here could pay an effective tax on his profits of up to 75+% with a B&O tax, where in Idaho, right next door, it's 7.5% on the same profit. That's 10 times the tax in Washington State. That's just one example. The B&O tax is one of the best kept secrets for a tax in the states because it doesn't vary much with the business level. It just keeps delivering. Also, the state of Washington on January 1st, 2020 will be at $13.50 minimum wage. That's the full extent of the 5-year increase that was voted in by the folks under initiative. $13.50 will be the highest minimum wage in the United States for a state. There are cities that have higher minimum wages, but not for the state. So $13.50, that's everywhere in the state of Washington. Even Oregon has segregated their minimum wage into 3 different levels for rural communities, which was a much smarter approach. I tried to introduce that same bill in Olympia a few years ago and was shot down. Small businesses up against some of the highest worker comp rates in the nation, thanks to our monopoly worker comp system, a system that is not very friendly to employees or employers. It is unique in the fact that employees do pay a quarter of that bill. That does help, but we still have some high rates. And our times, the extended times of people on L&I is some of the highest in the nation. At one point, it was over 300 days people would stay on L&I, where the national average was more like 30. Now, they've improved that somewhat, but the cost of L&I is still quite high. It is a monopoly, and it is a payroll tax that is very extensive. The other one that's very high, I should go back for just a moment. One of the reasons that hasn't gone higher is because of the efforts of Senator Holmquist and myself, who negotiated a reform package for worker comp several years ago, and that has leveled off the increases dramatically in the taxes, along with the safety rate being very good in Washington. We'll give L&I credit for that. But frankly, without those negotiations, we could have been some of the highest L&I rates in the country. Same thing holds for U&I taxes, unemployment taxes. We have some of the highest in the country. It is interesting that when they talk about unemployment insurance stimulating the economy, they always talk about how that money goes into the economy. The fact is they don't talk about how it comes out. Employers pay that full load. Employers pay the load, and it comes back into a fund and is used for unemployment insurance. That is a net zero situation. In other words, every dollar is paid in, and so it does not create a net increase in volume or economy because it's taken out up front. We would have had much higher unemployment taxes. They're still high, but we would have had much higher without the efforts of Senator Parlett from this district and myself in a reform we did again back about 10 years ago. That certainly slowed things down with some automatic triggers to keep those taxes low, and a low unemployment rate in Washington state has certainly helped that situation as well. Well, what else can small business face? High payroll taxes, high minimum wages, extremely high B&O tax. Well, paid family leave, it's here. And depending on the size of your business, you or your employee is paying a deductible for a program that, when it's administered, costs a tremendous amount to administer and has a good benefit, but only one that certain people will use. As a matter of fact, in states that have paid family leave, the uptake rate is between 3% and 10% at maximum. California having the longest track record, about 10% usage. 100% of the people pay into this fund. It's a very high cost administrative fund for a benefit for a very low number of people that use it. This program, we fought it for 10 years, makes no sense whatsoever. Most places provide a paid leave program or a leave program. The federal government has a leave program in place. This is not the most efficient use of dollars, and it's certainly another burden, not only from a tax standpoint or cost standpoint, but from a bookkeeping standpoint. And if someone leaves for 12 weeks, they have to come back. If you have a very limited number of employees, sometimes it's difficult to find a temporary replacement. All right, also paid sick leave, which was done by initiative, that it creates 1 hour of paid leave for every 40 hours of work. That really creates a 39-hour work week. We're paying 40, we are getting 39 because most people will take advantage of that paid sick leave program in one form or another. And of course the fees for various licenses, for liquor licenses, for corporate licenses, for all the other things add up. Health department if you're a restaurant. There are so many different fees and costs for small business in this state, and they all are increasing all the time. Last but not least, now with the new property tax, the change in property tax, I should say, from $150 to $250 for local governments and for schools, it could be a substantial tax increase for property owners, which are business owners. And this is why it's a lethal formula. When you put all these things together individually, it's not that tough, but when you add it all up, it becomes a lethal formula for failure for small business. Some of the big corporations can write it off, spread it around, do other things, but when you add up all the regulatory requirements and the taxes and fees. Very difficult for small business to operate. We're going to find out more about that when Mike McKee joins us in just a few moments. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the 12th District. Well, small business is a big passion for me. I was self-employed for 30 years, still have a business or two on the side. And one of the reasons I got into the legislature was because of the way small business was treated in Washington State. I didn't feel like it was doing a very good job, and we managed to do some improvements, but it was a constant defensive battle. Now there are more things facing small business than ever before in Washington State. No one knows that better than the guy that's sitting next to me. Mike McKee owns Mike's Meats. Mike, thanks for coming back. And I want to talk about 1648. We're going to get there, but right now, look at the onslaught of things you're facing with paid family leave, paid sick leave, and a $13.50 minimum wage coming up January 1. I mean, how do you feel about all this?
Boy,
It's got to be tough.
It's getting, just tougher and tougher every year. It's not just the $13.50 for the minimum wage. It's when you take your minimum wage people up, then you have to take your regular people up as well.
I think that's something people overlook. It's a wage ladder. So
Yes.
if somebody was at $11.50, it goes to $13.50. It's got to go to $15.50, and it just piles up. And then, of course, the payroll taxes increase accordingly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just more things. Every year we just get more and more taxes coming towards us.
And beyond the taxes, the bookkeeping. I mean, now you have to track paid sick leave and paid family leave, and you have a very small number of employees. If you have somebody leave for 12 weeks, it's probably difficult to replace them.
Yeah, it is. It just puts a hole in my business.
Right. You don't have any flexibility with that. Well, we're gonna spend more time on that in the future, because I think as we approach January 1st, I know a lot of small business people locally, particularly restaurants and food operations like yours, are telling me they may not be able to get through this. They just feel like it's not going to happen for them. So we'll continue. But that led you into politics a little bit. And suddenly, last time you were here, we talked about 1639 and some other things you were working on, Liberty State.
Yep.
But that morphed into something completely different. A few weeks ago, you took on an initiative with a small Facebook page. I did a little help with you on that. And guess what happened? Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, we exploded. We started out with a Facebook page trying to energize Eastern Washington and getting them involved in the tax killing initiative. Started with just a little Eastern Washington for I-1648. Took a beating from the people from Western Washington wanting to be part of our little exclusive club over here. Today, I think we're at 7,200 people. So it has just absolutely blown up.
And they are engaged. I mean, you look at the posts, and they are literally going door to door getting signatures for this petition. They are going out to businesses. You have 300 locations on lspac.org, right?
Yeah.
lspac.org. Over 300 locations and adding more every day.
Yeah, we're having a hard time keeping up with the locations that are coming in.
Right. And tell us what 1648 does again.
Well, so in the wee hours of the morning, the last few days of session, the legislature blessed us with about $27 billion worth of new taxes, and that is billion.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
So it goes back and it terms those out. So they go away, and any future taxes it will take and put a 12-month term on those.
So it's a sunset on any new taxes after 12 months, or you can vote. And it basically goes out to a vote of the people. Well, but what I think we're tapped into here is much more than taxes. Don't you feel like, I mean, the reaction that I've seen on this Facebook and the comments are that our people don't represent us, we're not being represented, we feel like it's running on autopilot over. Is that the feeling you get?
Boy, yes. And the thing that I'm finding out is it is a bipartisan.
That's the other surprise.
Yeah.
We got there's a lot of Democrats on there, and independents and libertarians. They're all on the page.
That's right. So they're not happy as well.
Yeah. Well, a few weeks ago, Mike, I did a show talking about linking Brexit to our own situation in the Congress to 1648. Basically, all those are saying you're not representing us. They kicked all the conservatives out of England because they wouldn't get Brexit done. They asked for it. 3 years later, they didn't have it. And then in the United States, the Republicans had full control, couldn't fix health care, couldn't fix immigration, couldn't get the job done, and the Democrats are back in power. This isn't really a right-left thing as much as it is a response to not feeling the job's getting done.
Yeah. The other surprising thing is the amount of people that have no idea that the taxes are coming.
Oh, yeah. Well, because it was done in the middle of the night. It wasn't
That's
talked
right.
about. The other thing is the nature of the taxes. They're specific to certain areas. They're targeted certain ways. They're not major tax, except for property tax.
That's right.
But the rest of them are kind of stealth taxes.
It is.
Which is the new method. Let's do the stealth taxes. We just talked about earlier on the show. Did you realize our liquor tax, you probably know this, $32 a gallon. The next closest is Oregon is $22 a gallon, and the average is like $8.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. And these are stealth taxes. You don't see them until you go buy that specific product.
That's right.
So this is something that Washington, and I was there, I know how they do it. And I think this is just an incredible movement, what you're doing, what you've set up, and I'm glad to be helpful, but you have really become the leader on this. And I think you put even Tim Eyman to shame a little bit in terms of being able to make it go. I understand the Republican Party even is sort of on board.
Almost, but not quite.
They said they supported what? The limit on taxes.
Term limit on taxes. Yep.
Although they didn't mention 1648 specifically. Okay, so what's the turn-in date? Anybody that wants to sign Ellis Pack as your local, we got locals here in Wenatchee. We've got Doghouse Motorsports.
Bob File Boats and
Bob
Motors.
File Boats and Motors had a bunch of petitions the other day. Mike's Meats, of course, has it. And there's a whole bunch more. Just go on lspac.org and check it out.
Yep.
But make sure that you get that signed. This puts it on the ballot, folks. What this does is put it on the ballot. We still have to vote. You still have to go out and campaign for this thing. But at least we get a chance to put it on the ballot. It will be there with $30 tabs, which is kind of exciting. Something I worked on 20 years ago. And I think we might make this. It's going to be tough. This is 322,000 signatures in 40 days is what you're trying to do.
That's right. And so, if you have a full petition, send it in. June 30th should be your last day to get those in the mailbox, because I can tell you what we're going to be doing on the 3rd and 4th of July. We're going to be opening envelopes and getting these ready to turn in. They turn in to the Secretary of State on the 5th of July.
5th of July is the mark, and I'll be there. I can't wait. I hope we can pull this off. This will be the first time it's been done with no paid signature gathers, folks. No money in this. So great grassroots, great effort on your part, and frankly, I think you've unlocked something much bigger that I've been feeling for some time. People just aren't real happy with the way things are going.
Yeah, it's across the board.
Yeah,
I mean, it
really is at every level.
An R or a D. I mean, people are just not happy.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you have it, folks. We'll come back and wrap it up. Thanks, Mike, for being here. We'll check in with you after the fact. We'll see if this happens, and we'll be right back with the 12th District. Well, there you have it, a rundown on tax rankings, a little talk about small business. But let's look at the poll ratings as promised. Currently, the presidential rating has increased in the last few weeks. Several polls have him at 45, 55, 45 favorable to 55 unfavorable. One, the Rasmussen poll, has him above water for the first time in some time at 50% approval, 47% non-approval. That's a +3 rating. That's a Rasmussen poll, a pretty good poll. Nancy Pelosi's at 3850, 38 approving, 50% not approving. Congressional approval still hanging at 18% yes, 70% not so happy. That is the problem. All right, Democrat candidates, 32.2 for Biden, 16.8 for Sanders, 10.8 for Warren. There's your top three right now as of this week. At the back of the line, Jay Inslee, 0.6. Now that's better than what he's been doing at 0.6, but he is falling behind Gillibrand, Castro, Yang, Bennett, Booker, and O'Rourke, all which have less than 3%. Jay is at the back of the pack. Well, last but not least today, there's a question of whether a lot of people think President Trump is dangerous to the Constitution, but there was an article in the Washington Post by Mark Thiessen that says just the opposite. It's the Democrats that are the threat. When they threaten to take out the Electoral College, that would be the biggest strike to the Constitution in the history of this country, and then stack the Supreme Court with more judges so that it waters down the solutions or the decisions there. That would be an even just as big a blow to the Constitution of the United States, and there are so many more things they are threatening to do. It's a great article. You can find it on the Washington Post. All right, next week, we will be back on the tax situation. We're going to tell you what changes July 1st. Well, all these new taxes coming in, when do they take effect? How much will they cost? Who are they levied at? We'll talk about that. And then we'll have one more check-in with Tim Eyman before the turn-in on the biggest grassroots campaign in 20 years, I-1648. Yes, we're going to go back and get the guy that started it all, Tim Eyman, on the show to talk about it. It'll be an exciting show. We'll hope to see you next week. This is Kerry Condata for the 12th District. This is the NCW Life Channel.